Ho, 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 ho. Christmas is coming. It is a massive fraud. Jesus Christ never existed. When I told that story to Jim Fetzer, who understands the illegitimacy of the British Crown for 160 brutal years, he bailed out the conversation, unprepared to make a second hour of our interview on something that we had pre-planned for weeks because of the magnitude of the fraud. The people that have revealed it are really brave. They do not turn their face to the camera. That's all we get to see about the head of the man Abelard Reuchlin. Let me just introduce you to the two speakers and who they are, and you can look them up on the internet for yourself. The research is profound. They present it on a scribble board, and it is the most amazing story that I have ever heard in my life. I'm a professor in neuroscience, and I've taught and researched in both hemispheres in this beautiful earth that the gods created, and I now understand entirely the human contribution to messianic religions, which are a total fraud but a master plan for owning the world for 2,000 lethal, genocidal and Holocaust driven, missionary driven, culling of the pagans driven brutal years. It is really, really sad, and when you listen to episodes 4 and 5 of the 5 that have been made by these pair, the tears will come into your eyes. And if you have a modicum of decency and faith in God or the gods, because humans cannot know how many there are or what they are thinking or what they are purported to have written on tablets of stone, what we have got to do is adhere to the moral regulations and hopefully stave off acts of God that are cast down in the form of pathology or geological or seismic activity on this blessedly beautiful earth within the blessedly beautiful universe that the gods have created for us and humans have entirely despoiled. Let me introduce you to the two speakers. It'll take a wee bit of time to warm up. We're just a month from Christmas. It's getting quite wintry here, and all of the merchandising is beginning to drop through the door. Okay? And what I'm going to show you is that the vicious jokes on Christianity take you right into the heart of popular culture, and they are really, really, really vicious.
Hi, my name is Douglas Vode. I'm the publisher of Vector Associates, and after 30 plus years I finally got my friend Abelard Reuchlin to do an interview of his infamous or famous book called The True Authorship of the New Testament. Some of you may have seen it advertised in Nation, New Republic, etc. Where it says, Flavius Josephus writes New Testament. Well, he's the first one in history that openly wrote about it and figured out the whole family relationship of who wrote the New Testament, when the books were written, the code systems that the PISOs used in writing it. So if you're a theologian, amateur professional, regardless whether you're Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, Jewish, or even if you're a Muslim and curious about this whole story, you're going to love this. This is a real treat. You're going to learn more about not only Roman history, but the code systems and how it was written, and the proof that Abelard is right and everybody else is wrong. So I've got a couple of questions for him. And what you see above us here is the family tree that we'll partially go through, so you understand the relationship of who wrote what, how the books were written, the years they started, and how it progressed because that's a big mystery for many scholars, is how the books were written, when they were, and stuff like that. So, Abelard, thank you for taking my invitation and finally doing this. First question. What can you about? Why did you decide to write this, or how did you get curious about the New Testament?
Many people are curious about the New Testament. They can't understand why a small group of supposedly persecuted Christians could persevere in the catacombs for 35 years, hiding from the Roman legionaries who supposedly are trying to find and kill them. And the legionaries knew the catacombs far better than did these poor, straggling, uneducated Christians.
For sure.
And it's a mystery. Where were they for 35 years, and how did they come out of the catacombs well and alive after 35 years with great new leaders that nobody had ever heard of before? Where did the Christians come from? How did they escape the legionaries in the catacombs for 35 years? That's how I got onto it. I was an attorney for over 50 years. But like many people want to become an attorney and they don't make it, I made it to become an attorney, and I always wanted to become a detective. Well, I read Agatha Christie, I read Sherlock Holmes, and then I got onto the New Testament, because I was so curious about how did they manage to hide for 35 years in the catacombs.
Okay, so that is about 1/3 of the way through the first of the videos. I'm going to summarize it because you can watch them for yourself. It is extremely complex. I've spent 2 days listening to it, and I'm very intimidated by trying to relay it accurately to the global audience that I hope I'm going to capture, because it is tremendously important that the fraud stops now, and that this world, which is technologically capable but horribly corrupted, could be a peacefully prosperous place within a year or two of these revelations being made and shared with the global populace. It is a massive money stream, and it is intensely complex. So I want to introduce you to the characters that they introduced. There are 4 or 5 key figures in what they call the family tree, and you can see the family tree in the background there. I've got it printed out on my note paper, because only if you write on it when you're listening to it can you begin to absorb the magnitude of everything that is described. And you can see I've made 4 or 5 pages of notes on the 5 YouTube posts that these pair have made, and it is really simple conceptually, but because my memory's frail, it would be better if you were to listen to the videos yourself, and I can just summarize them for you. So there are key names in the story, as in every other story. A lot of this was started in Rome, in regions relatively close to Rome, and Velius Paterculus was the father of 2 characters who are particularly important. One of them was Flavius Josephus, and they were in the river Sabine region, and the people that were working with him have got nicknames like Farilis and Scrabonius Ianus, and one of the brother or the son of Paterculus, one was Flavius Josephus, who's relatively prominent in the search engines if you look for him early on in this story, and the other person in the Flavian dynasty that was the son of Perpetuating is actually Vespasian, the emperor in Rome at that time, and his son Titus ruled from 79 AD, and there were a series of deaths in the Flavian family that ended with the killing of Domitian in the year 96 AD. Now Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, and that was when some of the later characters were in a position to start publishing the really important bulk of the New Testament, and there will be details on that later on. We've got a series of websites on my web pages that allow us to scan down and see what was happening. So there's the name of the book, The True Authorship of the New Testament, and there are some of the contents of the book: the great secret, the Jews reject the story, the authorship, the numerical coding, sounds, animals and illusions. The jokes are vicious. They will help to drive home the story more than anything else I can tell you about the complicated genealogy and the numbering system that allowed us to decode it and to decipher who the authors were and why they wanted to be remembered in human history. They knew that one day they would be found out, and Abelard Reuchlin and his colleague in the publishing sector found them out, and it's only because of the dedication of very, very rare websites now to revealing this precious cause that I have been able to find the story and to pick up on it. Okay, so we've mentioned Flavius Josephus and the Flavians involving the emperors. That takes us to the sort of third familial dynasty on the first of the videos, and then we get into a chap called Gaius Calpurnius Piso. He takes over, and the links of this to popular culture and to the jokes are massive. The stories about King Arthur in the UK were actually written by the Roman popes, not in English for obvious reasons. Latin was the lingo of the day, but that when I learn that the father of Arthur was also related to the Flavians, and that is a chap called Furius Pendragon. You can see the Freemasonic jokes coming through. Furry ass, that's a hairy-assed creature that is the head of the kingdom that wanted to be civilized and is entirely mythological, written by papal figureheads. And then the fourth person in the first half of these listings in the genealogical trees is what they call the man. Now, the man that you hear all about on the golf course in every big tournament around the world, you're the man, you're the min, all of that relates to the Piso stories and all of the jokes that are told to them. And you can see that if you look for Arius Calpurnius Piso, who's the prominent author of most of the books in the Bible and most of the chapters, that Reuchlin describes that when you look for Arius Calpurnius Piso on the websites way back when they published this book, which I believe was in 1981, they eventually found a publisher with courage. They talk a lot about not showing Abelard Reuchlin's face because of the possibility that if he became a public figure that he would be taken out. Now, I'm a public figure already because I've made 180 odd videos on massive frauds, and Jim Fetzer was taken aback when I was able to declare that I was actually recording the interview that he bailed out with. So that's what Professor George LEES looks like. This is his house, and because he's revealing these massive secrets that are blighting the world and the world's economy and has the world always in a very dangerous place. There is a severe risk that I will be killed by the owners of the world and the religious figureheads that run their religions entirely for profit. My son has given me a haircut because I'm jobless now. I'm so honest that I cannot get a job in the global cabal, and I am a very intelligent person, but I find this topic, because of my lack of knowledge of the characters in it until I discovered these really important websites, it is vital that the world learns that none of the messianic religions are genuine. All of them are just a money stream or a political control method to control, and this is ironic, it is a pun that is entirely intended by these jokers. It is there to control the masses. Now the Mass is the celebration of the death of its martyr in the Christian Church, the Roman Catholic Church, every Sunday. That's the masses being controlled, and that is one of the sick jokes that you'll learn in the next 45 minutes or so. Okay, so I've introduced you to the four big figures, and when we get on to the second episode, we find that we're talking about people like Furius. Now Furius was one of the participants. He's the nickname, I think, for Vespasian the emperor, and the Furius joke is continued Scriboni anus. Now you can see that all of these little spellings and things that for us are jocular words that would be written on toilet walls, they are really important now in popular culture, and the Furius issue has become images of Roman power brokers. There's the Gladiator movie, and you can see the furry cloak that that person has on. All of them are jokes. I don't know whether or not the fur coat would be very invaluable in Germania, but when you see that these are political lampoons, then it becomes quite pathetic. Scrib is a website upon which I've discovered that Shimon Peres uses it as a false history of Zion, and also his nephew, based in Spain, which is a relatively comfortable place compared to the desert in Israel, where Shimon Peres has been sent to for several decades to be the Prime Minister of Israel. That is now a propaganda event on the genocides in World War II, but also a place where you can purchase art treasures laundered out of World War II by the Israeli participants. Now on different continents. There's a branch of the Perez family in Latin America as well. Okay, but the story that we're telling here continues with Gaius Calpurnius Piso. That's the father, I think, of Arius Calpurnius Piso. Now Arius Calpurnius Piso is the big figurehead in this story. I'll try and find who wrote what for you, and it is really interesting. So there's a little bit on the authorship and the books and when they were written. Arius Calpurnius Piso wrote the majority of them. The present Mark, Luke, John, Acts of the Apostles, and you've got other writers like Proculus contributing later on, Pliny and Justus, and Justus is the man who wrote the Revelation stories, and some of them were involved in massive fallouts within the family at that time. So Fabius Justus and Proculus Julius, and which is another name for John, and Fabius Justus were the real creators of the later chapters, and this was operating around the period 100 AD or 115 AD, okay, and you can see that there is an intensely complicated numerical code in the system, and you can see that if you look at it relatively closely, that it is based on numbers and just jiggling letters around. If you look at that image there, you've got encoding for authenticity. Let God be true, but every man a liar. Romans 3.4. Now when scholars and clerics and theologians begin to cite sentences like that, it comes over with a massive amount of authority, as if it were the words of God himself. All of this is a stitch up and a fake by a really intelligent family of elite Romans that were in the Roman court and were in it only for a mind control mechanism. When they started to write this, there were 8 million Jews in the region, but by the time they had culled the Jews with the Christian fraud and the launch of the Jewish revolutions and the campaigns, there were only 3 million Jews left. They barely had a life. I think that's in the second of the interviews that you'll hear from Abelard Reuchlin and his colleague. It is tragic, and when they describe that, you can hear their voices breaking up, and they know that the history of religion in every denomination and in every faith is just about control of minds. If you control minds and you literally control the masses, you can cast the fear of death and hell and purgatory into the mind of the masses, and it then becomes really important for them just to become compliant. And the authors, the speakers, describe how you no longer need soldiers and policemen on every street corner to keep the peace, because the doctrine that they have read or they have heard from the preacher or the missionary or St. Paul, the tax collector turned reformist, and you know, he's one of the people that took the Roman Church into Greece and all up across the European regions, and all of that is happening over the following 500 years or so. It got into Ireland, you know, one of the last places, and Kievan round about 800 AD, and there are stories that I've told you in earlier videos about the Doomsday Book and the coming of the French clerics into England and Anglo-Saxon regions, and that's where the King Arthur joke has been perpetrated. There's another story about the numbers of people that were killed by King Arthur single-handedly, and all of it is just about a declaration that the number that we're telling you here is a declaration that this is the author of the New Testament who's writing this little segment, okay? And the key number for him was, in that case, 960 people, and remember that this is written by popes. So King Arthur in the UK was able to protect the English army, and he was able to single-handedly kill 960 people. That's the same number that were killed in the suicide of the zealots at the Masada battleground. And what it exemplifies is that 300 is the letter T in the coding system, that Christos, or the word, or the letter Chi, is 600, and Calpurnius Piso, the main author of these segments, was the number 60, and that takes you to 960. And in the early days of the Arthurian story, that was enough to convince the Freemasons and the followers only the elites only the leaders of the church got to know about the fraud. If you could speak Latin in the king's court or in the cardinal's presence, you would be in the inner circle and you would be aware of everything that's happening. There we can see those numbers again. 600 is Christ, 300 is the cross, 60 is Jesus, and KP is Calpurnius Piso, the author. Now KP takes you into the jokes about Kenyan products, and very early in the series of interviews they explained how the Piso that created the virgin birth was actually fathered by another emperor. That's on this right hand end of the timeline. So you can see up there that we've got Emperor Gaius Caligula, and in the middle you've got his son, who was Arius Calpurnius Piso, and the mum was the wife of Gaius Piso, the one that we described as number 3 in that bloodline on the left hand side of the page. The wife of Gaius was Aria, and you can see that when you look at the names that are given to the children and to the office bearers, sorry, I'm just going to have to reopen my computer. Okay, let's see if we can find that on the image. So here we've got the father Gaius Piso, and you can see the link here to Arius Calpurnius Piso. He's the man they call Piso the bigwig, the man. Yeah, he's the one that did most of the biblical writings. There is his dad, Emperor Gaius Caligula, and his mum is Aria. And the mums, the Arias, there's a senior member of that family and there's a junior member of the family. You must listen to the 5 videos to get this right. There's the trading address. They sold their PDFs and their books for only $5 a throw. They estimate that 1 million of them have gone out, and they are in the west coast of America in a place called Kent. And now the place where they sell the books and that postcode has become a T-Mobile vent. Now T-Mobile is a joke about the Christian cross, and there you can see the letter T, and this is a joke made on the 27th October. T-Mobile, welcome back. So the cross is the T and welcome back is a ficking joke about the resurrection. Let me show you how futile and infantile and jocular it is. T-Mobile is one of the big phone companies, and basically what they're saying is that we are going to execute you, we are going to monitor your every activity because we hack your phone. And the government now pride itself in doing that. In the chipping Norton set that we talk about in almost every video, they have got links to Dunstan, who is the Vodafone magnate. They've got links to the Coulsons and to Rebecca Brooks, who are the hackers in government for the Prime Minister, and all of it is premeditated and laughed at. The viciousness, we have billions of Christians around the globe now, and they are now becoming aware that their leaders are asset stripping everything that they used to have as poor parishioners, and look at the magnitude of the laugh. return of the man. Can you see it? Can you see that almost all of them understand it now? This used to be a well-kept secret. Everyone in the news media understands it now. The icon for the PISOs is the horse. The hippos swim around in a circle in the BBC news broadcasts at the beginning of the programme. They love to proclaim their might and their topicality in sharing a joke about the stealing of the world from its people. You see them knocking the nails in? Wait till you see the arms outstretched in the messianic martyr's role. There we go. There you go. En masse. Like the Monty Python's team, always look on the bright side of life. If you're an elite at Oxford or Cambridge or University College London and you learn ancient history like the lead singer at Coldplay, Chris, I forget what his name is, he understands entirely the fraud. They are trained to have a laugh at the enslavement of the Christian nations, and the missions that sell it now are entirely for profit at the top of the church. The poor people get robbed, they contribute to the food bank, they contribute to the collection plate, and all of the money gets laundered. All of the denominations get tax breaks if you put it in a little envelope over a certain amount a week. It is really, really pathetic. Okay, and let me now just take you to what they said about. So if you want to understand it, let's just scan through some of these pages on my website, which is Prof. George Lee's Revelations, Faking the New Testament, a master plan for geopolitical domination. Okay, and you can see that we have jokes like this. Now, the Romans had a massive empire, and the religious takeover, the culling of those 8 million Jews and reducing the numbers to 3 million, which is described in the videos, is tragic. The Jews dare not fight back. You get anti-Semitism thrown at them, you get the genocides and the Holocaust that occurred in Nazi Germany. All of that is debated in the videos, and the tragic events and the mind control issues that mean that the Jews get their religious texts dismembered by the Christians, and there's nothing that they dare do about that. The loaves and fishes story about Jesus feeding the 500 listeners and followers, 5,000 I think it was. He had 2 fishes and 5 loaves. The joke is that when Roman soldiers laid siege to a city, they used a technique they called loaves and fishes. They would bake bread with fecal matter mixed into it and amputate the penises of captured citizens of the city and throw the loaves and fishes over the besieged city walls. It's well known that Roman slang for the word penis was fish. It is no coincidence that Jesus performs the miracle of loaves and fishes. It's a cruel Roman joke, and all over popular culture you can see it replayed. Now, the character's name, when the inbreeding occurred with Caligula and Arius, Calpurnius Piso and Gaius's wedding night, or within the first month of their marriage, the emperor was able to sire the child that wrote most of the chapters. Now, the mother was given, in the biblical story, the mother was given the name Mariam, so that you could tell that that was, the author wanted to be both the mother and the child. And Caligula was the father god in the, it was not an immaculate conception, it was an illegitimate child sired by the emperor, and all of that takes you into the Rothschild breeding chambers and all of the stories that Greg Hallett was killed for and that I'm being persecuted for, because I'm now extending the illegitimacy of the monarchy into the illegitimacy of the Christian oath. When they put at the end of the Arya mum's name, they put M and M, it becomes a joke about confectionery in Lord Sainsbury's supermarket and in every retail outlet across the English speaking globe. Yet they think it is really hilarious to persecute the world, to make merchandise to enhance the profits even further, and to put in a sick little joke. Okay? And the expression that you're using, the loaves and fishes joke, by putting a penis in a pile of shit and basting it into bread and gluing it together that way, what you've got there is a joke about this. Let me see if I can find it. I might have to search in both directions. Oh, so there's the M&Ms, there's the Pendragon joke. So this is the story about King Arthur, the Anglo-Saxons, and having that ever so civilized link with the French, who pinches Guinevere at the end of the story. And King Arthur, all of it is a numbers game. All of it is to control the minds and to make it look as if kings are respectable, in league with popes, and that is the constitutional monarchy that Alex Salmond would have inherited if he had won Scotland's referendum. Nothing would have changed. All of it is a sick profiteering joke against the citizens. There's the Pendragon. Do you get that one? The pen is the power base in religion. Writing was invented in Canaan. They used blue dye initially. That was the first dye stuff to be invented. And Canaan is God's anvil in the Lawrence of Arabia jokes. And in the Lawrence of Arabia jokes, the two homosexuals who stick the stick up the camel's arse. Now the camel and the Camilla and the camel coat is also part of the PISO joke. The two poofs in popular culture that stuck the stick up the arse of the camel in that massive movie about the interplay between decent Britons abroad and the suppressed locals. The names of the two Arabs, homosexuals, were Dodi and Fayyad, and the head of the UKIP, Farage. Dodi and Farage. All of it is a vicious joke. All of the Old Testament keeps getting replayed in current affairs. Barak's in it, Lady Aga's in it. It is all pathetic. All of it is replayed. The names are made up so that they can be related to Josephus the author, or they can be related to the Miriam person and the presence of the author in that scene, just like Alfred Hitchcock did in his movies. No, we're going the wrong way. Let me see the one I was looking for. There's the Pendragon joke again and again and again. There's the fur joke again on King Arthur, and this was also Marcus Aurelius in the gladiator jokes. You can see the sword is just another icon for the Christian cross, and the bloody culls that Abelard Reuchlin describes as his voice is breaking up. What else have we got? Camelot, medieval England. They reveal that the father of one of the people in this story is called Nun, and that is how the nuns get their title. It is ever so fascinating, but the jokes are ever so sick. There's one of them. Do you get it? There is the penis with some mustard on it on this occasion, and that is the hot dog joke. If you watch films like The Right Stuff about choosing German rocket scientists, nuclear physicists to come and enter this elite team to invent the rockets that eventually are deployed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All through that film you hear the actors exuberantly declare hot dog, and they clap their hands together, they give high fives as they declare the hot dog word. It's a joke about loaves and fishes, it's a joke about your penis in a sandwich, and about the starving of people in the Roman Empire when their city was under siege. When I was an altar boy in the 1960s, you used to have to eat fish on a Friday, and that means that your dad got sex with your mum, and if he was really lucky he would get his second coming. It is so sick, it is unbelievable. Okay, there's the El Cid joke. They show you the deployment of these little catapult devices, and when my children go to museums all across Britain where the Roman legacy is still quite profound, all of the buildings that they built are almost intact still because they are really good at what they do. And that is why this method is so effective. But the culling of the people in those cities is a well-kept joke until those two in front of that chalkboard or that scribble board begin to reveal it. And when the news gets out, it's shared only by the elites. That's why Abelard Reuchlin has his back to the camera all the time. And there's the El Cid movie, where the victim, where the murderer of the claimant to the throne, who was his elder brother, looks exactly like Tony Blair, the war criminal. It's uncanny. You should watch the El Cid movie and just look at how Tony Blair plays and God is capable of such things. He picks body doubles and he plants them in different generations so that the jokes get explained. Tony Blair is a rich and genocidal leader, and he and all of the other prime ministers are made aware of the religious fraud so that they will not make a trivial error and reveal the nature of the sad story to the poor people who are entirely their victims. I think we can shut that site down now. What else have we got in the joke sector? Pathy News, the cock and bull stories. There's the tragedy of the culling of the... It was 8 million before the Jewish Revolution started. It was 3 million at the end. And there's the temple menorah and the Arch of Titus in Rome, and the Jewish survivors are preciously rare, and they dare not now say boo to a goose because they've got everybody prepared to hit on them. The 12 tribes from Israel have actually been culled relatively early in this story, and they have been replaced by Ashkenazi Jews when the Rothschilds kicked in from Eastern Europe in the periods leading up to the French and American revolutions and the culling of slaves for being black as well as for being Jewish. It is really, really clever, and you do not need a soldier on every street corner because they fear doing the wrong thing. In the populace, the poor people are good and innocent, and they adhere to God's laws. There's the statistics on who got killed and who killed them, and some of the PISO story is about them being generals. Fabius Justus was involved in... Joshua was the basis of the name Jesus, and Joshua's dad was called Nun, and the stories about the generals include... So the Julius part, Revelation was written by Julius, and it was basically a denunciation of the PISO family, and the introduction of the devil. So Julius was very unpopular because he also introduced Judas and the treason element into the story, and that was a means to defame the story. So that son was very unpopular in the family, and they eventually disowned him of his children's inheritance, and it was taken over by another family member, and so they put Julius on trial. They left Revelations out because it was so heretical for 50 years.